There's no doubt. I was marginalized. I was minimized. And I reached a point where I was not going to take that anymore.
The I'm back
guy. Oh, no. Now, that's a new one. Nobody's ever called me the I'm back guy.
I'm back guy.
All right, cell phone off.
All right, here we go. We good in there? Sweet.
Host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm Jay Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Rhyner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leanne Morgan.
It's Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Sweet, clean whip.
Yeah.
On these airways today is really, it's the guy that made us want to do this to start with. If we could just capture some of the magic that was had from his days in radio, then maybe we would have a little something that someone other than us would want to listen to.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, we redid the mic stands today so that we could sit a little bit closer to them.
That's true. That maybe, and as I said, maybe we could get close enough to just put in the Pinky Scout. We could get a handhold with some interlocking fingers and make this thing official. It's the Texas Radio Hall of Famer. It's the Old Gray Wolf, Mike Rhyner. What's going on, big man?
I am up here on the Reverend and the Reprobate podcast again. And very glad to be so. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's so good
We will
to
reorganize
see you.
our desk every time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's not bury the lead here. 97.1 The Freak. That's happening. I've got my homemade Glen Nation shirt on.
All right.
KEGL.
KEGL.
Kegel.
You've taken over you've taken over the airwaves of 97.1 and you say what you want. What's it like being back on the air, man?
It's great.
Yeah?
It is great. We're having a whole lot of fun over there. This is one of the best times that I've had in my entire career. I would put it right up against, I'm not trying to demean anything else, but I would put it right up there with the best of any of the other places that I've been.
Wow.
I mean, I'm really, really digging it, really digging everything about it. I even dig management.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You and the man are getting along?
We are.
That doesn't make any
We are.
sense.
We are right in lockstep.
That's not very rock and roll.
What's different about this situation with the management that you find so appealing and
Well,
comfortable?
for one thing, they don't overdo it with us. Mm-hmm. They let us go in there every day and let us do, exactly whatever it is we're going to do. They, I guess best way to put it is they seem to realize that these things are living organisms, and they're very, very young. And over a period of time, they're going to take the shape that they're going to take. And they're very content, right now anyway, to let that shape form, and then we'll see what kind of shape it is and what we need to do with it from there. But right now, we are free to be whatever we want, however we want. And that's pretty neat.
That is pretty neat, and it's so unique in terrestrial radio, right? That's why so many podcasts have started up with people that used to do radio or guys that were in radio for a a long time, or maybe
we turned down so many offers.
Oh yeah, so many
radio.
gigs. Yep, so many radio gigs. No, but
we didn't want the hassle.
We didn't want to deal with management. But the deal is that there's a lot of guys also that are radio hosts, and then they have a podcast on the side to do the stuff that they really like to do, right?
Yeah.
So getting to do that on the air, that kind of freedom seems really unique in the situations that you guys are in. What do you think created that atmosphere? Is it the management, or is it the way that you guys pitched the station initially?
Boy, that's a good question.
Thank you.
I think it's probably both. It's probably both because I think they were apprised by Ben and Skin, who are really the instigators of this thing.
Okay.
Because they were already in there. They knew management there. We did not. They knew the ways of the place. We did not. And they were very adamant in letting them know what their vision of the thing was. And their vision of the thing is exactly what you hear on the air. And management, for whatever reason, bought totally into it.
Now, Ben and Skin mentioned that they had started trying, and so to be just total transparent, like from the minute the Downbeat went on the air on that first Monday, I've been locked in, right? Because I wanted to hear the story. I wanted to hear how things evolved. I got the sneak peek at the Twitter picture, so we knew Grooves was going to be a part of that. Grooves is a great friend of the show. It was good to get to hear him and apply his craft once again.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was shocked that he wanted to do it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I hadn't been in real close touch with him over the years, but
Sure.
I just always assumed that once he got out of radio at the Ticket and went off doing the other things that he did, his days of wanting to do radio were done.
I think that guy has probably for the last decade been one of, if not the hardest working engineer, board up, whatever in the area, just trying to make sure that he pursues this. He and I texted a little bit on y'all's first day, and he was so stoked to get to be not just back on the air with you, but just back on the air in general.
Yeah, he's really digging it, and he's really feeling it, and I'm really surprised by that.
Yeah. So it seems like he's home, and it does feel a little bit like the show that we're getting now with the Downbeat is the one that we should have had for the last decade, maybe in another port of call with the way that your new producer has come on board, and I say that Grooves, I guess, is technically the producer, but Danny's come on as a host, and getting to hear him back with you guys and rekindle some of that chemistry has been really cool and really fun. So we heard, kind of circling back, Ben and Skin said in the beginning, one of the linchpins for them when they pitched the station initially, that they kind of heard like, oh yeah, this is an interesting idea, but they knew they had to get somebody on board that would sort of be the hook in the deal, and that's when they reached out and to see whether or not you would come out of retirement. What were those initial phone calls like?
Well, actually, here's how it looked from my side of things. Skin had to go away for a while. He was fighting cancer there. Mm-hmm. And, fortunately for everybody, he seems to be doing just fine now. Yeah. But he had to go away for a while and couldn't do the show. And while he was away, Ben was running just spare guys in there. Friends of his, guys that he thought, could and would do it. One day he reached out to me. And at first, I was kind of reluctant because I didn't know how that would play up at the Ticket.
Right.
And finally, though, Ben's very persuasive.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if you know that or not, but he is.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, he can talk anybody into doing just about anything. It's amazing to watch. But he hit on me, and over the course of that conversation, he broke me down, and I thought, look, what's so bad about helping a brother out here?
Right.
Here's a guy who needs a little help. So help him out, and if anybody gets their panties in a wrinkle, then deal with that when the time comes.
Yeah.
And so I did. And we went in there and did the show that day, and it was a lot of fun, and I thought that was it. Well, a couple weeks later, he called me and said, hey, meet Skin and me up at Lockwood Distillery.
Okay,
Let's have a drink.
which is where you guys
pluckers.
Yeah, well, that's where you guys had your big your gift exchange, right? Was it
Yes,
Lockwood?
that's right. Yeah. Just a couple last week, I guess it was. And so we did, and we're just kind of talking, laughing, at the start of it, and they started talking about the situation at the Eagle and everything, and just jokingly, I said, what needs to happen here? You guys need to talk them into changing the format to talk and hire Saroy, get Danny on board, bring in Kavanaugh, bring in Julie, and do an all-talk thing.
Yeah.
And Ben and Skin were sitting across from me just like you guys are right here.
Right.
Except that we're much more handsome.
Yeah, we're much prettier.
Oh, yeah. And when I said that, they just looked at each other and started laughing really, really big. And I'm sitting there looking at this going, oh, man, did I say something wrong or what? Mm-hmm. They're just having a big, big laugh about it. And finally I just said, what? What's funny about this? And he says, that's the very thing we're thinking about doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he said, would you be into it? And I said, I don't know. I was I was a very happy retiree. I was very happy when in my time out of the game. But the more they talked, the more I started thinking about it. And within about, 10 minutes after they started really drilling down on it, I started thinking, okay, I'm going to do this.
Wow.
And off we went.
Wow. Well, the definitely the next topic I think is Grego coming back, because I know that the both of us, I'm sure Scott and every other man in DFW and a bunch of ladies too, set their alarms for 3 p.m. when he was coming on your show, the Downbeat. And would you? I guess I'd love to hear from your perspective. And I know we've talked about it to death, but it's major news still that that you guys got back together for a filming for an episode.
I have re-listened to that day probably half a dozen times now, because it was magical in so many ways. So yeah, talk to us about
Everyone
that.
across DFW hung up their phones and turned off their computers.
Shut it down.
We were all listening.
Yep.
Well, as fate would have it, on the way up here, they were replaying that.
Were they really?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
And I, too, have gone back and listened to it again, and now I've listened to it another time. And I was really leery about it at first because, our falling out was a very deep falling out.
Yeah.
And for a long time there, I just would not have anything to do with him. He reached out to me a few times, but I wouldn't get on the phone with him, and I just wanted nothing to do with him. And finally, he pretty much gave up on me. So, I was being a tough guy.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, usually a little time will fix stuff with me. I mean, you give me a little time, and I'll get over whatever it is. And that has been the case here, Like when the documentary, Not in This Town, was shot, he was in that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that we were in the same place at the same time. And, it was okay. It was okay. We did all right there. Now, I understood that he was doing me a solid there. So, of course, I had to make nice with him, but wasn't that hard to do? I walked away from that feeling a little better, easier about the whole thing. And as for this the other day, now make no mistake, this was a move of counter-programming for sure.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it at all. And if this is, and I believe this is Soroy's brainchild, right, to do this. This was kind of his idea, and he brought it up to the other guys, and then both of them told him.
I love that.
Yeah, both of them told him, no, don't do it. And Mike was like, I'm going to try it anyway, right, in that way that he does.
This is the counter programming against.
It was masterful.
This is against the white elephant.
Yes, against
terms.
the very staged, we've come to find out, white elephant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, I couldn't
surprised.
listen. So.
Yeah. As you're doing this, right, I'm thinking back to, because it was addressed that there was some counter programming and some gaming that was being done on the air a couple of times. You guys talked about it.
I love chess.
I also love how transparent y'all are on the Freak about how people are like, this seems like a ratings grab. Yeah. We're 4 months old. Why wouldn't we try a ratings grab? Absolutely. That would behoove us to do that.
I mean, this just in, but ratings matter in our business,
It's not like you got a podcast, right? Ratings actually mean something to your bottom line if people listen or not. So I love it, but I'm thinking back now to all of the articles that were written, and we did an episode really early on when the Freak was announced about some of the things that were said, particularly in the Dallas Morning News, which is affiliated with the ticket.
Tell them the title.
It's the title of the episode was called "In Defense of the Freak, Not That They Need It." And the idea was that as we were reading these things, it seemed like the Dallas Morning News and the ticket were scared about the Freak And they kept trying to recreate this as a David and Goliath story, as though the ticket was David again and the freak had become this behemoth overnight just by having you there. And everything in these articles just seemed ridiculous and disingenuous. And it really frustrated us, right? As people who, and we mentioned on the episode, I wouldn't call us necessarily friends, but we've got a relationship, and maybe one day it'll turn into that if we can, convince you to come back as often as we have. But the thing is you and Groobs and the guys at the station have been really gracious to us. We want to see you be successful. So when we hear that this is happening and that it's coming down on that Wednesday, the very first call that I made was to Dan. Is like, Dave, they're doing it. They are going to kill the other station in the ratings, and this is going to become what we hope that it would be, the next juggernaut that Mike Rhyner, maybe not as helming this time as Ben and Skinner at the helms, but at least you're in the co-pilot seat. So you're helping steer the you're looking over the shoulder, be like, I don't know if I'd make this turn, but this one seems pretty good. So
that's right. We'll take the next one.
Did it feel good knowing that this was a successful piece of counter programming, and that you kind of had the opportunity to stick it to some of the people that had been writing articles about you all the last few months?
It was a bazooka of counter programming.
It was.
Well, I don't know. I would have to look at the numbers, which I've not done as of yet, to find out just how successful it was. But I don't know. You go by what is in front of you.
Right.
And what has been in front of me is what people have told me, what I've seen on Facebook, what I saw on Twitter. And, all of those places. And judging from that, yes, it was quite successful.
Did you see the midday piece of counter programming that was sprung up on everybody at the ticket?
When Grego showed up, did you expect him to look older or younger? That's a dumb question. You've seen it.
I don't know. I expected him to be something like he was.
Yeah,
I knew he would be doing a bit with his look.
Sure.
Which he was, because
the facial hair.
He's always trying to get attention.
Yeah.
And that's the way he does it, by throwing down weird looks.
And it's worked. So during the midday shift, one of, I think, probably your best guests on Your Dark Companion ends up popping in for a guest appearance on the other station, and that was Dale Hansen. And that, to me, when I started seeing...
You were incensed about that.
Well, when I started seeing that people were talking about Hansen being brought up on the other show, I was like, they actually are really worried about the ratings for this week and for this day. Like, they're really concerned that they're going to lose today. Especially since he came on with guys who he had like noted beefs with. So as now you've taken a few steps away, you're firmly supplanted in the stuff at the Freak. What do you think, coming off the momentum of that day, where do you think that carries you guys for the next, few weeks or months, whenever you come back from dry dock here in, what, about a week you'll be back?
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Because to me, none of this stuff has a real shelf life.
Right.
You do it, it's over, you go on to the next thing. And it's like whatever you just did doesn't even matter anymore.
There'll be some nerds that'll talk about it, but
that's it.
What's next?
Yeah, that's just the way I've been programmed to think about the stuff. So I don't know. I don't know how much real buzz we're going to get off of it or not. I guess ratings will come out sooner or later, and we may see a little bit of a hike. But look, this is going to be a slow roll. This is going to be a very slow roll, and that's a really, really big fish we're chasing out there.
Yeah. Although I will say it doesn't appear to be a slow roll so far.
No.
That you guys have exploded onto the scene, brought Danny back. This was, 3 weeks ago or something? My timeline might be off, but...
Something like that.
It seems like you guys are making really big moves in the beginning. Do you think that you're situated now for the slow roll, or are there more curveballs coming?
I think we're okay for now.
Okay.
There are some other things that we would like to do, but that's way, way off in the distance. And it's also very unclear.
So you mentioned that you were surprised that Groobs wanted to do it. We haven't gotten to talk to him a little bit over the course of or the past couple of years since he's come on the show. We knew that if that opportunity came about, because we had talked to him about it off air, if that opportunity came up, that he would jump at it. The radio was what he loved. What I was really surprised by was the addition of Danny, and here's why. One of the things that we discussed about our own listening was Danley and I both stopped kind of being P1s right after your disappearance, we'll say, right after the world's longest hallway jaunt, right? So right after that, we kind of stopped listening, and as we're talking about it and the pandemic starts rolling, and we're not driving as often, one of the things that we had both mentioned was that there seemed to be, and this may just be our perception, but there seemed to be, over the course of the last several months of your time at the Ticket, almost kind of an underhanded treating of your role during your show. And it was something that both of us had noticed. It had become irritating to us. And then when you left...
Now, what do you mean exactly?
It felt like the other host was not treating you, I think, maybe with the respect that you deserved as a co-host. There started to become more and more jokes about age. There was a lot more about the things that you maybe weren't doing or had forgotten on a piece of thing. All of those things started to get highlighted, I think, instead of maybe worked with. And I think, going back to, let's say, your relationship with Grego, that was always one of the things about y'all's relationship and y'all's on-air chemistry that was so special, is that when Grego forgot something or whenever he had a misstep, instead of you putting the spotlight on it, what you would often do is that you would just let him roll and dig a hole and then throw some dirt on it and then figure his own way out of it. And then at the end, ask him if he was feeling better about himself and then let him say no to everybody in the Metroplex, and then you'd go on to the next thing. And it really
is
started...
this ringing a bell?
Yeah.
It really started to feel like the chemistry on the show was being shot, because anytime there was any sort of little thing, it didn't have to be a big misstep or misspeak, that there was a spotlight that was thrown onto it. And to be fair, from that, really the fourth quarter of 2019 until your departure and really into February, whenever they resettled the new dynamic, I bet I have not listened to 4 hours of the other station, when it used to be that was one of the things that was a defining deal for me. And a lot of that had to do with sort of the way that, and we've talked about it, like I said, the way that we feel like you were sort of treated. And then when we saw your retirement, we were like, well, no, this makes sense. Because when you start something and the younger guys start to treat you like you haven't done anything, this is what happens. Is you want to do it on your own, good luck, I'm out. So that being said, right, as it felt like that was the way that some of those things happened, I'm curious now how it feels being back with particularly Danny. Because from my perspective anyway, and that's all this is, right, is that Danny was not necessarily on the bandwagon, but he certainly was not jumping up in defense of Mike. And so
not that you needed it.
Yeah, not that you needed it. But were there some things between when Danny left to the start of the Freak, or his start on the Freak, right, that you and him needed to talk through about some of that? Or is this just something I'm making up in my head that wasn't really felt?
There was no talk between the two of us.
Okay.
From the time I left, I don't think I talked to him once.
Right.
But as to your other points here, there's no doubt. I was marginalized, I was minimized, and I reached a point where I was not going to take that anymore. And that's why I did what I did.
That seems completely fair. And I think that if we look at, in particular, in the Facebook group, because one of the things I love about the Freak is the Freak Facebook group is not only really active by the people that listen, but the hosts are really active in it. And I've been surprised to see how active you are in it, because most of your Facebook posts are, this is where petty theft is going to be.
Yeah.
Come hang out, come see the show. And then outside of that, there's
a random
nothing.
Tuxedo picture.
Yeah. Every now and then.
Congratulations,
yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, congratulations
Thank
on the
you.
young Jordan being wed. But So that's been the extent.
That was not a tux. That was just a nice suit.
That was very sharp, though. What was the thread count on that?
High.
But it did seem like there's this great community that's being built around the things that are happening at the Freak, which has been really cool. But a lot of the former P1s, it seems like, are coming back because it feels a lot more like you're enjoying doing this again. And I'm curious, like, what is the difference between the end of the old place and the start of this? Is it just that you're starting something new, or do you think it's more the people that you're working with?
Both.
Yeah?
It's both of those things. I'm really digging doing something new.
Yeah.
I'm really digging watching it take shape. One of the things that's really setting my soul on fire is watching people move into the role of full-time host.
Yeah.
Who have never done that before. People like Mikey, people like Danny, people like Julie Dobbs.
Right.
I mean, although all of them are capable of it, they've never had that opportunity. Now, the ball's been tossed to them, and they're picking it up and running like hell with it. And that's really, really neat to watch.
It has been really cool. I remember listening to the episodes of Your Dark Companion, where you talked to Mike Soroy, after his exit, and the camaraderie that the two of y'all had. Well, that's another episode I probably listened to 2 or 3 times, where I was like, if you could take this and bottle it, like, these two guys really seem to love and respect one another. They really seem like they're having a good time.
Yeah.
And when it got announced that you two were doing a show together, I went back and listened to y'all's episode on Your Dark Companion, and I thought, you know what, I could listen to this for 3 or 4 hours a day, especially with the amount of just kind of off-the-wall creativity that it seems like Soroy has.
He's amazing.
He really was, I think, one of the biggest untapped talents at the other place. So what is it that you see now with you've got Groobs back, now you're working with Danny again, you've got Mike Soroy there. What do you think creatively you guys have rolling for you that sets you apart than some of the other people in your time slot, or really at other stations?
I think right now, it won't always be this way. I think right now, newness is a big part of it. Freshness is a big part of it. There's an element of surprise with each other. Like when I throw something out there, I mean, I have worked with people who, when I threw something out, I knew what they were going to say. I knew how they were going to react. I don't know that anymore.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot more spontaneity from me regarding them and vice versa. And I think that's one of the really fun things about it. It was that way in the early days of the ticket too.
The game is back.
Yeah. It's like, in a lot of ways, I'm getting to relive that again.
That's awesome.
That was probably the best time of my entire career.
Yeah.
Except until now.
Which is incredible now that, post-retirement, like having come back out after you Brett Favre'd everybody, now you're back out of retirement, and here you are having the best time that you've had in radio.
Yeah, it's really neat how that works.
Do you feel like you're looser this go around than you were in the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you can Tom Brady it and just keep going?
I don't know. I don't know how long I'm going to have this time around, but I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about what's going to happen when we're in there doing the show next.
Well, which hearing that you're going to do the show next is a good thing, because some of the speculation, especially out there on internets, has been that, Mike's helping them get this thing kickstarted, but in, 6 months, he's kind of planning his exit strategy and to turn it over to the kids. But having talked to you, it doesn't sound like that's the plan at all.
No, that's not the plan at all.
Well, that's good. We love having you back.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
We love the billboards too.
Yeah, the billboards are great. Okay, so
was that your idea?
No. I didn't even know they didn't even tell me they were going to do it. One day somebody comes up to me and said, "Hey, man, I saw the billboard." I thought, what freaking billboard?
Your face is plastered all over Dallas.
Oh, I know that now.
It's awesome.
Do you get recognized from the billboards now? People say, "Are you the guy from the billboard?"
Yeah, I've had people come up to me and ask me if I'm the guy from the billboard. And then, of course, they're going to want to take a picture, so we do that.
That's great.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's really neat.
I've never had a billboard.
Yeah, me either. I will
much
say,
less like 100 of them all across DFW.
So my wife's family gets together down in Pflugerville to celebrate Christmas. So prior to Christmas, we have a big family get together like the second week of December. And we've had we're halfway through our third year in this podcast, right? They have not given a crap about anything that I do, right? The pastor thing is fairly mundane and boring to them. They're like, oh, cute, your pastor husband's got a podcast. Well, Kirsten mentioned, she's like, yeah, well, they just
talk about different kinds of wafers.
Yeah, they just had Mike Rhyner on. Well, now all of a sudden, all of the guys from the family, I'm being bombarded by like 20 guys that are like, hey, talk to us about Mike. What's he like in person? Tell me, can you text him right now? And I'm like, no, I'm not texting him right now.
Go ahead, text me.
Let's see if Mike responds. Just shoot me a selfie so I can show everybody who this really is. No, like so that has
proof of Mike.
Yeah, now all of a sudden, right, because of your presence on the Freak and the billboards, that's how a couple of the guys were like, oh, the guy that's on the billboards on 635 and all that stuff, the I'm Back guy. It's like, yeah, he's the I'm Back guy.
Oh, no. That's a new one. Nobody's ever called me the I'm Back guy.
I'm Back guy, right, has come on. Well, it apparently that's all I needed to do to legitimize myself to my wife's entire family was to say, oh, yeah, we get to sit down with Mike Rhyner. Now our podcast downloads have gone through the roof, and it's only on your episodes from her family.
Right.
They're listening back to it, and they're like, oh, yeah, you really did. So thank you very much.
I'm glad to help you boys out.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm happy to report that my family still does not give a crap.
Fair enough.
Yeah, as they shouldn't.
I don't mind being in obscurity.
No, it's kind of nice.
I work in the shadows.
Yeah, well, I have a tape in the back of my mind reminding me constantly that no matter what I'm doing, there are 50 billion people in China who don't give a...
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And thank
who's
goodness.
ripping the show off, actually.
Yeah, they're just bootlegging it. So we mentioned Jordan's wedding. So again, congratulations on that. And I'm curious because we've had a few run-ins with Jordan over the years because she, was in the band scene for a little bit. And so we got to see her as a singer a couple of times. And just throughout the years, I've kind of bumped into each other. One of the things that's always struck me is just the nature of y'all's relationship and how good it's been. And she had always been one to be obviously very complimentary of you in those situations where people are like, oh, you're Mike Rhyner's daughter and all that as it came about. I'm curious because in my estimation, she's always been sort of protective of Dad. I'm curious as to what her thoughts were whenever you have that conversation. Hey, I'm going back on the air. Yeah, I'm back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
When I'm backed her.
Yeah. What were Jordan's thoughts on that?
She's supportive generally.
Yeah.
And she will just say, whatever you want to do, Dad's all right with me. But this time it was a little bit different. She kind of drilled down on things a little bit. Like, why do you want to do this? Are you sure you wanted to do this? What's this going to do to your legacy? What makes you think this is going to work?
Yeah.
Who else are you going to get? What's your role in this going to be? She put me through a pretty good ringer about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I had really good answers for her back then, but now she's fully on board.
Was this in one conversation or many?
Several.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
There's new ideas and new questions. I would have the same thing. Definitely my sister would.
Oh, for sure.
For my pops.
But that's that's part of that daddy-daughter relationship that's there is that, all right, well, and women are just like that. They'll break the ice with a few questions. Oh, why are you doing this? And then the next time they've had, 48 hours to think about it. Now they're just checking stuff off what would be their cons list. Why are you doing this? What is this about?
Scott, is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Scott rings
yeah, he's got a daughter. So she's on board now with you being on the Freak. What was it like when she heard that you were going to do this show with Grego? What were her concerns like, or did she even have the opportunity to voice them before you went on the air with it?
She really didn't have the chance, but I think she was pretty excited about it.
Really?
Yeah. I think she thought that this was, number one, going to be kind of cathartic for me. I think she thought it had a chance to be some pretty good radio.
Right.
And I also think that she was pretty aware that a lot of people were going to be interested in hearing this.
Yeah.
So she was on board. There was not much reason for her not to be.
It would seem, looking at this, that your radio career, that relationship in particular, likely had a huge effect on her life in different moments. And does it give you confidence knowing that she's in your corner, or is this one of those areas where, like, all right, in the beginning she was a little worried about it? Is there a part of you that's like, no, I need to do this to prove to my daughter that, like, I'm really in it, that I really want to do it? Does that even enter into your mind?
No, I really didn't think about that too much, because I knew she would be supportive.
Right.
Either way, I knew she would be supportive regardless of whether I did this, whether I didn't do it, whether I ever went back on the air again or not. No matter what I want to do, she's got my back.
That's awesome. You mentioned when we were first sitting down that you're not enjoying the time off like you did in your retirement, that you want to get back at it. You know, you've gotten a couple of weeks off. What excites you the most about going back to the Freak?
The thing that excites me the most about it is I want to see what finding the groove we were in is going to be like.
Okay.
I want to see how quickly we're going to be able as a group to re-access that place and get back to the place where we were, because we were on a pretty good roll back then.
Oh, yeah.
We were turning in some pretty good shows day in, day out, and I was feeling pretty good about things. And, you know, I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, but if they tell me
2-week vacation.
Yeah, if they tell me they want us to all take a couple weeks off, and, you know, if we're not the only ones that get to do it, fine, let's do it, you know? So I'm really kind of interested in seeing what that's going to be like, not only for us, but for the others, too.
Yeah. I think the Speakeasy is the one that, because there's a certain amount of rapport that you and all the guys on the Downbeat have, right? Having been around each other, worked together before. The Speakeasy group is the one that I think I've probably been the most impressed with on the Freak. And a lot of that has to do with Julie Dobbs. Like, Julie seems like, first off, that she's game for anything. She's really, really smart on the air. Her personality kind of seems to rein in when the other guys are going in a certain direction, that she sort of has this feeling of, like, all right, this has reached the max. Like, we're not going to get any more out of this bit. And she sort of kind of seems to bring things back to center and directs that whole morning show. What's it like for you, having worked with Julie at the Ticket? You got to see her do some podcasting. You know, we're both on Vocal now together for a while. Mm-hmm. She was doing her podcast with Emily Jones. What's it like to see her grow into this role as a host?
I'll tell you what it's not like.
What's it not like?
It's not surprising.
Yeah.
At all. I don't know. There's just something about Julie. She knows how to get into a situation and take a look at it and find the place for her. Find the place where what she is and what she can bring will lend itself to the highest, best purpose for it.
Yeah.
She knows how to make it work, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I will tell you this. For a long time before Danny came over, Mikey and I were doing the show with just whoever else we could get in there to do it. And quite often that would be her.
It was, yeah.
And if they would have told me, look, on the Afternoon Drive show from now on, we want you, we want Mikey, we want Jules.
Yeah.
I would have been so fine with that.
I gotta say, those episodes those days were great.
Yeah,
because she's talented.
What do you call it? What do you call it it's not an episode. I said that.
Yeah,
earlier.
right.
We say this is an
these.
episode.
Yeah, these are episodes.
Is a daily show. Like what do you guys call it? Today's
program.
I don't know. I don't know if I have anything that I constantly call it. I might call it a program or the show or
Thursday.
yesterday's show or Thursday's show or
Yeah.
That's probably what I use the most. I don't use episode hardly at all.
That makes
But-
sense.
It does.
Yeah, we do one of these a week, and we're like, oh, this is exhausting. You do 5 of them a week, and you're like, I can't wait to get back to work. What? Go ahead.
I have a suggestion.
Oh, boy.
Okay, hit me.
I think in the old days of the Eagle, there was a little thing called mandatory Metallica. I think everyone would love if there was mandatory Metallica at some point.
Yeah.
One song.
Just do one song, and then you get Reiner's immediate review of whatever he thinks of that Metallica song.
It'll throw some what's it called? I don't know, respect to the old days of KEGL.
I don't think that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
And it is one that I've toyed around with a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us more about this.
I haven't tried to advance it yet,
Right?
but I don't know.
Also, don't listen to me. You do what you've been doing.
I think there is kind of I remember a segment that you guys used to do called Bob and the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of fond memories about that, about the idea that, do they hold up now to a person who'd never been exposed to them? You had mentioned whenever you were with us before that you really didn't dig that kind of music for a while, but now you understand that there is some merit to it. That's kind of in the wheelhouse of Mr. Bayless, especially some of that 80s hair metal stuff. If you were to do a segment like that, what is your idea for it? Where do you go with it? Is it a weekly thing? You do it once a day? How do you make that work?
It would probably be weekly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. But when I was in retirement, I expanded my musical horizons and
You opened up the dark period?
no, not exactly the dark period. The period where I just didn't like it, wasn't into it, thought there was nothing there.
Creed?
No, not Creed. Not Creed. That would have been the period where I'm digging the bottom of the pond.
Where linemen ski?
Yeah. But Metallica is one of the bands that I started listening to a little bit.
Okay.
And discovered that what I'd always suspected, and that is that those guys are really good.
Yeah.
And that there is something there.
What prompted you starting to listen to Metallica?
Probably something I heard on Eagle 97.
Really?
Yeah, probably.
That's just not now I'm retired. That's not the route I think most people go. You know what? I think I'm going to try Metallica
Most
today.
people go like Price is Right, Bob Barker.
Well,
Yeah.
look who you're talking to.
No, that's true. That's
if I may
true.
invoke the words of the great Josh Hamilton,
Go for it.
if it's me, you know it's going to be weird.
That's true. And it's one of the things that makes you still one of the most exciting radio personalities in DFW, is that you're not afraid to get a little freaky.
If you will.
Yeah. So I'm listening to The Freak. I'm enjoying just about everything that you guys are cranking out. There's some stuff where you can tell that you're working on chemistry and trying new segments. One of my favorites so far has been you ranking the parts of the car, which was I think it's one of those that I listened to part of it live, and then I went back and listened to the podcast, and I'm listening to it on repeat. I'm cooking dinner. My wife comes in and she's like, "Is Mike talking about gas tanks?" Like, yeah. She's like, "Why are you listening to this? This is so." I was like, "It's genius." And then I started over. She gets about halfway through it and she's like, "Okay, I got to go take care of the baby." So, as you're experimenting with new things, you're getting to kind of play radio again.
Yeah.
Right? Are you finding yourself, especially now during this dry period, are you like jotting down ideas?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, "Hey, we haven't been on for a couple of weeks, and now you're excited about that kind of stuff again."
Let's talk about frogs.
Or are you coming up with some of the new Soroy Enterprises things? Are those just a brainchild of Mikey, or are you helping to come up with some of the fake advertisements that are coming on during the breaks?
That's his doing there.
Yeah?
Yeah. In fact, a lot of the stuff is Mikey. He was the idea that having me rank stuff.
Right.
That was his idea. I just took it and am running with it.
Yeah.
But that's the genius of Mike Soroy.
I have found the car ranking again. Go listen to it. It's on the Downbeat Podcast, where you can get wherever your podcasts are. Turn this off. Go listen to it. Come back. It's one of the funniest segments in radio that I've heard in a really long time because it's so innocuous. It's just that sort of Meshuggah observational humor that I think is just really great, and you've always done well with.
Now, see, my approach there was to take a look at a car and take a look at the individual parts of a car, and then imagine what it would be like if those parts weren't there, if they had never been a part of a car.
Right.
You know, what happens then?
Lose the doors.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, right.
Don't need them.
Nope.
Yeah.
But seat belts, you did rate seat belts, but seat belts seem like a...
Screw seat belts.
Was it just a safety thing with the seat belts that you felt like they needed to be in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So as you're approaching this kind of thing, somebody comes to you with an idea like this, right? You are the radio veteran, right? Is this one of those things where in these creative meetings, no idea is a bad idea? Or is it one of those things where in these creative meetings, you kind of make a list of, all right, I like this one, I like this one. These, I'm going to shut them down softly on. This is a definite no. How do you approach those kind of things?
About that way.
Yeah.
You know, there's stuff that you like and you think will be a hit. Mm-hmm. You advance those. There are some things that are kind of in that gray area that you think there might be something there, but you don't see right then exactly how you're going to approach it and make it work. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you will advance the idea anyway, even though you're kind of unsure of it.
Yeah.
And it falls flat, you know? I don't know. It's probably something everybody has to navigate in their own way, but I'm not afraid to take chances. You know? I'm not afraid to take chances, and if something doesn't work, okay, we'll just pick up and go on.
You burned 20 minutes telling people gas tanks were important.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Well, speaking
Well,
of
now think about it. If they're not there,
Yeah, it's bad news.
you got to have fuel in your car.
Right, or
where are
else
you going to put it?
Where else were the Flintstones?
Yeah.
And
I don't
nobody
want it. I don't want it
wants
on-
that.
I don't want it on me. I'll tell you that much. I will say as a advance the good ideas. Sometimes you just got to go for them. We have one that we want to try.
We
Okay.
do.
We've got one.
All right.
You want to set this one up?
So the last time,
This is an idea that made both of our dads giggle.
So the last time that we had
Made
you
both
on,
of your dads giggle?
Yes.
Both of your dats giggle.
Dads.
Okay. Okay.
So the last time we had you on, we made you read some things because after talking to you about the iconic Jim Schuetz book, The Accommodation, listening to your audio version of it, which is wonderful. It's out there. You guys can go find it and buy it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was incredible, and we got this idea of what would it sound like if Mike read some of our favorite, book excerpts, and so we had you read a little bit from The Hobbit, which was quite fun, and then you read some G.K. Chesterton about chasing someone's hat, which we enjoyed, and then come to find out it has now become one of our most watched YouTube clips is Mike Rhyner reads stuff. And so since are these, I'm seeing you're putting on your spectacles. These are not the aforementioned ladies' glasses.
No, they're not. They're not.
Have those just been
These are for the fellas all the way.
This one's for the boys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got two.
However, had I known you wanted them, you should have given me a heads
Well,
up.
yeah. Please, we'll put them in the Rev and Rep Hall of Fame. They'll just go in a nice glass case. So we've got two pieces here that we would like to see. The first one is I want to play a little bit of radio theater.
Okay.
Right. Take to the way back. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Monty Python at all.
More or less.
More or less. Okay.
Yeah.
So were you? My suspicion was that you were aware of them, but probably not a huge fan.
That's about the size of it.
Okay.
Good.
Yes, that's exactly what we wanted. So one of the most famous...
Man, you guys know me too well.
Listen, man, And it's because of that guy in there. From the minute I could not listen to Randy Galloway, you were the only guy that I. Now I will say, after listening again to him on your podcast, I got a new appreciation for Galloway, right? Because he wants to stick it to the man and Jerry Jones just about more than anyone I've ever heard, and
Except
I do
for
love
Hanson.
that. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but he's got his own qualms. But anyway, that was a nice piece of podcasting that you did there.
Thank you.
But that's why we know you so well, is because I'm 37. I've spent the last probably 30 years of my life listening to you in some way, shape, form, or fashion as often as I could consume you, and Mom wasn't around to tell me to turn it off, or to hear Grego say something about a woman's chest that immediately got the radio unplugged. So anyway,
this is a famous scene.
Yeah, it's a famous scene.
The French taunter, where King Arthur arrives at a castle.
Yes, and
looking for the Holy Grail.
He's looking for the Holy Grail.
And we would like for you to play
the French taunter.
Played by John Cleese.
Yes. Now the French guard in the movie spoke with a French accent. It's up to you whether or not you'd like to do that or not. We're going to put that in the much more capable hands than ours. But it is written also in a bit of a French accent, as we found out whenever we grabbed the script. But if you would play the part of the French guard, I will be Arthur, and Danley, I think, is going to pick up Galahad and
anyone else
and others.
All right, let's do it.
You ready to do this?
So this opens up on Arthur and Entourage.
Here we
riding
go.
up with magical music and horse clapping. Clap, clap, clap.
Halt! Hello?
Hello? Who is it?
It is King Arthur, and these are my knights of the Round Table. Whose castle is this?
This is the castle of my master, Guy de Lombard.
Go and tell your master that you have been charged by God with a sacred quest. If he would give us food and shelter for the night, he can join us on our quest from the Holy Grail.
Well, I'll ask him, but I don't think he'll be very keen. He's already got one, you see.
What?
He says they've already got one.
Are you sure he's got one?
Oh, yes. It's very nice. I told him we already got one.
Well, can we come up and have a look?
Of course not. You are English types.
Well, then what are you?
I'm French. Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly kinga?
What are you doing in England?
Mind your own business.
If you will not show us the Grail, we shall take your castle by force.
You don't frighten us, English pig dogs. Go and boil your bottom, sons of a silly person. I blow my nose at you, so-called Arthur King. You and all your silly English king. It's...
What a strange person.
Now look here, my good man.
I don't want to talk to you no more. You empty-headed animal food trough wiper. I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster. Your father smelt of elderberries.
Is there someone else we could talk to?
No, now go away, or I shall taunt you a second time.
Now, this is your last chance. I've been more than reasonable.
This is a difficult frontier.
Yeah, this is...
And actually, I think scene.
Scene? Yeah.
Scene here.
So,
but because this goes into a lot of just sound effects.
Yep. So from that point on, they start to launch livestock at King Arthur.
Fetch le bouche, I think is what he says.
Oh. Yes.
Which means get the cow.
Get the cow.
Oh. I believe is what that translation.
Get the cow, and that's what happens.
Yeah, they start throwing.
They launch the cow at him. Mike, thank you so much. That was rather well done.
Work.
Yeah. It has always been a dream of mine to hear Mike Rhyner say, "I fart in your general direction."
Yeah. I'm going to use that on Twitter when somebody pisses me off.
Go for it.
Just make sure you tag us in it so that we can go.
We have one.
We can go and like it. We
if you'd like
do.
To proceed.
Now, one of the things that we have heard on the airwaves, if we've mentioned, are these fake products that have been created by Mike Siwa, and we found one of maybe the most harsh product reviews that there has been out there. Now, this is an actual review that had over 20,000 people mark it as helpful.
Yeah.
For the sugar-free gummy bears.
Haribo.
Yeah, the Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. And again, this has been one of those things that as Danley and I have toyed around with the idea, what can we do with Mike? this was one of the first things I came up with. Is I was like, I want to hear in Mike Rhyner's voice the sugar-free gummy bears review. So if you would, we'll give you the stage.
It was my last class of the semester, and the final exam was worth 30% of our grade. After a late-night study session, I felt confident, but I had to decide between sleeping in or cooking breakfast. My eyelids chose sleep. My stomach later regretted the decision, and after several uncomfortable stomach growls, I finally decided to make a quick stop by the campus bookstore and grab a snack before my test. Since the semester was ending and everyone was going home for the summer, a lot of items were on sale, including the snacks and candy that they kept up front. Being in the hungry state I was in, it felt only logical to pick the largest, yet least expensive candy in order to get more bang for my buck. And there they sat, 2 bags of Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. Buy one, get one free. What a deal, I thought naively. I would eat 1 bag before my test and 1 bag afterwards. As I walked to class, I gleefully chewed on those abominable little b****s, unaware of the utter mayhem they would soon unleash upon my poor anus. I sat down at my desk as the professor informed us that, due to issues with cheating in the past, restroom breaks would be prohibited until completion of the exam. I'll give you 10 minutes to use the restroom now. This will be your last chance. Any takers? He said. The demon bears hadn't released their unholy necromancy upon my stomach yet. So in my moment of ignorant foolishness, I remained seated, still munching on those miniature bear-shaped bombs. After the students wise enough to take the professor's offer had returned, the professor handed out the test. I was 6 questions in when it happened. It started subtly at first, almost like a slight tingling sensation in my lower abdomen. I thought nothing of it, assuming my intestines were just doing their thing. Little did I know that my intestines were trying desperately to warn me of the horror that was on the horizon. By question 9, it happened again, but this time it was followed by sharp pain, as if those infernal hellions had orchestrated an attack upon my colon. I fought to contain the groan that tried escaping my lips. It was at this point I began to panic. Something was going horribly wrong, and I needed to get through this test before it got any worse. By question 14, my worst fear was upon me. The Satan bear's burning, hot, liquidy, dark magic crashed against my anal sphincter like a tidal wave. I was able to close the hatch just in time, but those relentless toxic bears beat it like the orcs breaking down the doors of Helm's Deep. I knew I wouldn't be able to so much as shift in my seat without risking a breach. I kept fighting through my exam, clenching my cheeks with all my might. Beads of sweat began rolling down my neck. Suddenly, a loud, gurgling war cry came from my belly, and the entire class lifted their heads. At this point, nothing mattered except expelling this ungodly presence from my bowels. With 15 questions left, I promptly wrote C for every answer and ran out of the classroom. My professor yelled something, but I was too preoccupied with the volcanic eruption that needed to take place before I could find sweet relief. I burst into the restroom like the Kool-Aid Man, and behold, the handicap stall was empty. Sun rays from the adjacent window shone upon it as if it were a gift from God himself. It took me less than 0.5 seconds to undo my belt buckle, pull down my pants, and finally relax my weary buttocks upon the toilet seat. It took absolutely no effort to expel this demon. Almost immediately, the floodgates of hell were opened, and the liquefied souls of an entire bag's worth of gummy bears cried as they burned through my sphincter and into the watery abyss below. I had never felt such simultaneous relief and anguish in my life. After 30 more minutes of this, I immediately went home, dug a hole in my backyard, and burned the remaining bag of gummy bears. I leave with this. Do not, I repeat, do not eat these spawns of Satan. Not only did they cause me to fail my final test, but the anguish I experienced is something I wouldn't wish upon anyone, not even my worst enemy. The only place these godforsaken hellbears belong are buried deep below the earth's surface.
Well, there you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the consummate professional Mike Rhyner.
Reading an Amazon review.
Sorry about the voice.
Well, we gave you
Those
6
were
pages worth of stuff
Yeah, it was a
and
lot.
didn't give you the, hey, why don't you take a sip of water first?
Yeah.
That's on us. But thanks for being game.
I'm always game.
I really do think anything is better if you read it. And I will have to say that there are some books like The Accommodation, but also I did revisit recently, what is the name of that? Full Disclosure. And I can't help but reading all of it in your voice. And I've also found as we're reading to our young son, young Levi, we got the Sherlock Holmes mysteries for him, right? Just to give us something to read through. I will find myself slipping into that voice. And so my wife has told me
what character speaks in
so I automatically just like
narrator?
I start reading all of it in Mike's voice, and my wife goes, "You need to pick one. He can be Sherlock or he can be Watson. Mike is not allowed to be everybody." I'm like, "All right, well, I think he's more Sherlock." She's like, okay, because Sherlock tends to be a little bit more verbose. His vernacular is much better, and his sort of flippant way of saying like, oh no, I was able to tell all these things by passive observation.
What it must like to be so simple.
Yeah, it was quite good. So now my son will grow up hearing Sherlock Holmes in my terrible fake Mike
Full
Rhyner
circle.
voice.
You grew up
Yeah.
hearing Mike Reiner's voice.
But so one of the cool things about that is we kind of touch on this is that day one of the Downbeat, we were asked, so many of us were in the Metroplex, to give shout outs via Twitter for y'all's new Twitter account. And so we did, posted a picture of our last day in the NICU with our young son Levi that was read on air, and now we've got 3 generations of our family that are like, I guess now, Dad and I were P1s, but I guess Levi is he a Glenn? Is that what we'll call him as a day one
He's a
listener?
Glenn.
He's a Glenn. So we've got his Glenn Nation onesie, and he's been wearing it with his dinosaur hoodie to make sure that he is fully in support of Mike Rhyner.
All right.
So, but now we just got to get him. What is it? Is the Allosaurus? Is that the one you think is the king of the dinosaurs?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Why Allosaurus over Tyrannosaurus?
He's not quite as big.
Okay.
He probably moves better,
All right.
I think.
Right.
And I love his little baby arms. but that said, he's a badass.
Even with his baby arms?
Yes.
That's what I was
He's
thinking.
got
Allosaurus
serious teeth.
Are
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah, they are smaller, but they can probably reach better with their baby arms than the T-Rex can with his baby arms.
Probably
The problem
so.
with the T-Rex is his head is so big.
Well, that's
right?
the Meet the Robinsons thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that there was an animated movie called Meet the Robinsons, and a T-Rex tries to capture this kid, and he gets his head stuck, and the kid is just hiding underneath his head because he's got a big head and little arms, and he can't get to the kid in the corner. So.
Well, the other thing for me is I also think the Allosaurus has been underrated all these years. So
By who? Who's rating dinosaurs other than you?
Big Hollywood.
Big
Yeah,
Hollywood?
Big Hollywood. I mean, anybody who rates dinosaurs, they think of the T-Rex.
Right?
They
not
think of
any
the
good movies.
Stegosaurus. They think of maybe some of those that swim, but they don't think of the Allosaurus.
They had the Spinosaurus. They had the Velociraptors. They had all
Yeah.
of
The
these things.
Triceratops.
Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
but not the Allosaurus. I'm with you.
I think
It's a travesty.
I think he needs more attention.
Do you count pterodactyls as a dinosaur?
Prehistoric bird, yes. And there probably are some prehistoric birds that would be
Velociraptors.
considered dinosaurs. Yeah, like them. That would be considered dinosaurs, but I don't know about them.
You don't know about counting, because we had a guest on and we asked him favorite dinosaur, and he said pterodactyl. And we both kind of looked at each other like, I don't know if that counts. And that went into our Slack channel as next time we have Mike on, we have to ask him if pterodactyl is, because you are our resident dinosaur expert.
My second grade teacher told me that pterodactyls still existed. There was an island, and I believed that for a very long time. But I have found no corroborating
Did you want to go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah, you'd want to go, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And for a long time, I thought, where's this island that has these? I think she didn't know what she was talking about.
So, as a dinosaur fan, do you watch? Because I know you didn't like. You weren't a Star Wars whenever you were growing up.
No.
You're not a Lord of the Rings.
No.
Are you a Jurassic Park?
Oh, yes.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
Even the new ones?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Dinosaurs.
That's it, just the bottom line.
Yeah, that's it.
So did you see the latest movie with Chris Pratt? Did you see the new Lost World flick?
Yes, I did.
When are we going to get the Jurassic World, Lost World rankings for the movies from you? Because I think that's what we really need. Because my wife has watched none of them. And she says, like, I don't know where to start. I was like, well, you can start with the original Jurassic Park. That holds up.
Ranking the movies is good, but ranking the prime villain as far as dinosaurs go would be cool too. The Spinosaurus.
So which one do you think?
All right. First of all,
there's a lot of names.
If I were going to do that, I would have to.
You'd need some time.
Yeah, I'd need some time.
Would you need to rewatch?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I would. I'd in fact, I'm rather anal about this type of thing.
Right.
So I would want to start over and watch, the original.
Right, so you'd start from square one.
Yeah, start from square one, go from there.
So if you did that, are you going to do it? So now we're asking for it, right? Now we have to have this. This is what we need. This is how we're going to rekindle chemistry whenever you guys come back from dry dock, is with this. Are you going to do it from Soroy's Twitch channel? Are you going to be there just live watching and commenting on the Jurassic Parks from Soroy's Twitch channel?
I don't know. I kind of fear Twitch.
Do you?
Yeah.
What's it like working with all these young guys that are onto stuff like Twitch, and then you've been reading Call of Duty remarks and all this kind of thing?
Are you a TikTok?
No, I fear TikTok too.
Yeah.
Now, do you fear TikTok?
I'm very limited when it comes to that sort of thing.
But you're really, your only limitations is what you put on yourself.
I know.
So why?
I like it that way.
Your self-imposed fear of TikTok is you're in a comfortable place.
Well, what am I missing? Tell me what I'm missing by not
the 50 billion people in China that aren't listening to your radio station. That's what you're missing.
China creating and then stealing your algorithm.
Yeah,
for your personal likes.
What I think I am going to do, though, we need to get some of the mic clips and just do them as TikTok duets. That's what we need, is you reading stuff because you would blow up on TikTok.
Would I?
Oh, for sure. For sure. You're very, first off, your voice has such a unique characteristic to it. But second, your absolute disinterest in TikTok would make you so famous on TikTok.
I don't think you're off your
all right.
there.
If I were to do this,
yes,
how would I do it?
Well, first we got to download your TikTok on your phone, right? Because everything out there is going on a lot more than we think it is, and
That's
those
right.
apps.
It is.
So we start with getting that on there. We'll create you an account, and you know what we'll do? I'll even feed you stuff. I will send you videos to post on there, clips from our show to just get you started. And then after that, you just turn it on and say whatever comes to your mind. It would be 60 seconds what's on Mike's mind without all the burrito music. Which, are we going to see a segment like that or something of that nature start to come back? Are you guys going to get into doing some of the things that you did at the old station, or are you just going to go, we want to start fresh, create our own thing, do new stuff all the way around?
I don't know. My thing has been to kind of start fresh. But that said, I get asked that a whole lot.
Well, for sure. Because that was the way that I started my afternoon.
Yeah.
It was WTDS, and then it was straight into what's on Mike's mind. And that's how we found out about Ross Ulbricht and the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yes.
That's how, I found out about some of the crazy stuff that happened in baseball or this day in music or, people. Okay, one of the things that I found out about through What's on Mike's Mind actually changed an entire summer of my life. Okay, there's two big things I want to ask you about from back in the day. And this is the first one.
Okay.
In 1969, there was an incredible concert that ended up turning into an absolute disaster in Tracy, California. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Altamont?
Altamont. All right, so I hear you on What's on Mike's Mind start talking about what happens at Altamont Speedway, about the Rolling Stones movie Gimme Shelter, about the Mulsey Brothers and all of this stuff. So I end up diving deep.
The bikers?
Yes.
Hell's Angels?
Yeah.
So I end up diving deep into this hole, doing research on it, right? You spent like an entire segment, it went late talking about it, and I was like, I got to figure this out. So I find the Criterion edition of the Gimme Shelter documentary. So I watch it, I start to examine it. There was a movie company in Dallas out of Las Colinas at the time called Agora Entertainment. I'd done some stuff for them as a bass player, had worked on a couple of the scores for their movies. So I talked to them, I pitched them the idea. This is 2008. And so we're talking about it, and they're like, listen, if we can get this released for the 40th anniversary, this might be something we want to back. So I fly out to California, I go to the new Altamont Speedway, check out some stuff there, talk to a couple of old timers who'd been there for a really long time, go across the street to some of the farmers, and I've got it all on mini DV, bought a little camera so I could go and talk to some of these people to give me some initial footage, right?
Where'd you eat lunch?
So probably Taco Bell it was probably Del Taco. Yeah, coming that way. So I chat with them about what their experience was. The guy that owns the farm across the street from them is the son of the guy who owned it during the time. It's kind of their ancestral property. His dad just hated that entire day because he had all these hippies that were parking in his yard and he couldn't get them out of there. The police didn't want anything to do with it. The Hells Angels ran security, right? So I end up scheduling an interview with Sonny Barger. Sonny Barger is the guy from the Hells Angels. At this time, he was in Cave Creek, Arizona. So I get my plane ticket. I let him know when I'm coming. About a week before I get a call, Sonny doesn't want to do it anymore. All right, so I reschedule the ticket, pay the $150 fee to reassign. I'm going back about 6 months later. I'm at the airport, about to get on the plane, get the call again. Sonny's out, doesn't want any interest in it. Meanwhile, I get a call from a guy who I later find out is the bass player from the Flying Burrito Brothers. Okay? So the Flying Burrito Brothers were there that day.
Yes, they were.
So he finds out through some people that I had been talking to out in Los Angeles that apparently we had some mutual connections at a studio there. They were like, yeah, this guy from Texas came out. He drove like 15 hours in one day back and forth from San Francisco to Tracy to Los Angeles. Was really interested in this. Weren't you there? He says, yeah. The guy gives him my number. He calls me and he tells me, stop looking into this. I said, okay. Why? And he goes, just trust me, stop looking into it. This is who I am. You just need to not push this any further.
So high level this real quick for the listeners.
Yes. So what happens in 1969? Well, why don't you tell the story? You know it. You know it better than any of us. You're the reason that I got interested in it.
Well, what happened, as I recall, and I really haven't thought of this that much, but the Rolling Stones at the I certainly one of, if not the height of their superpowers.
Right.
About the time Let It Bleed came out. And about that time, the Rolling Stones were really tied to all this satanical stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they had a real bad image that way. They were
Goat's Head Soup and Our Satanic Majesty's Request, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they had a real bad image that way, and they were kind of tied to a little bit of violence as well. You know, I mean, they were just, I don't know. It's strange. It's not the band themselves so much as it was this vibe that surrounded the band.
Right.
It sort of came from somebody outside the band, the inner circle of the band, but I would have to do some deep digging as to find out who that might have been.
It could have been, there was a guy named Bill German, and Bill wrote a book called Under Their Thumb, where he ended up, he was a guy that was like outside at a concert, went and started talking to them around the bus, and then all of a sudden he's on the bus and he's on the road with the Rolling Stones, right? He's probably late teens, early 20s. Well, somehow in the course of this couple of weeks that he's with them, he becomes basically, as he would describe it, sort of an indentured servant to them. Everything that he has now, because he's just left, right? He relies on them for everything. And them and the management kind of make him their little whipping boy for the next several years, where he doesn't get to do anything that is outside of what the Stones want him to do. And anytime he gets a chance to after the first few months, he's kind of telling this story to people in order to try and get them to help him out.
Yeah.
And everybody's just kind of laughing about it. And they're like, oh, you could leave whenever you wanted to. Well, he describes this relationship almost as, like I said, an indentured servitude. Like he talks about just the mental and emotional anguish, that like he gets put through because he didn't feel like he could leave, and that he had to be at the beck and call, not just of the band, but of everybody that was part of this entourage. And apparently he's not the only one that was sort of in that mess at the time.
I don't think I know that name.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to get you a copy of the book. You'd be fascinated by it.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised by that story because, like I say, that type of thing was seemingly part and parcel of their scene back then.
Right.
Now,
so was it all just marketing or the image they were trying to build?
This is where it gets kind of the picture gets kind of murky.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much the guys in the band did to promote this or further it, but they sure didn't seem to do anything to stop it.
Yeah.
You know? It's the kind of thing that I got to think if they would have wanted to turn away from this, they could have at any time, but they didn't.
Do you think it may be because of the blues influence that they had? Because they were obsessed about American blues.
Oh, yeah.
And there's, the idea that the deal with the devil is what makes somebody a good blues player, right?
Yeah.
Going back to Robert Johnson and all that. Do you think that some of this may be like sort of a, maybe they didn't put a stop to it because they felt like this was sort of a romanticizing of their heroes and they were being thrown into that category?
And for those who may not have ever done this, I always tell people all the time that if you really want to get a handle on the Rolling Stones, what you need to do is start from the first. Start from their first album, go through it in chronological order, and listen to the early Rolling Stones albums. Number one, they're really, really good.
Yeah.
And number two, if you want to hear the band at just about its best, it's there for you.
Yeah.
But number three, it's way, way different from what it turned into.
Right.
Because really back then, they weren't much more than just a cover band of American rhythm and blues. Now, they would take the songs and do their own thing to them, but still, that's where their creative spark came from. And if they're going to get that far into American rhythm and blues, then it's not a real big reach to think that they're also going to be into the myth and lore that surrounded American rhythm and blues, like Robert Johnson.
Right.
And Crossroads.
Yeah.
And all that.
Okay, so that brings us to, this is the kind of vibe that they're putting out there in 1969 when they decide to put on this concert out in California.
Mm-hmm. Occultish vibes.
Yeah, so they're putting out these occultish vibes. So what's the genesis of all of this, and what did it turn into? Because you would be able to recall some of that, because you had turned down Beatles tickets around this time because you didn't want to go hang out with your sister.
Yeah, I had. I sure had.
So the Stones are in California.
California, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, they there was a period there where they kind of lost me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get into Her Satanic Majesty's Request too much. Didn't get into Beggar's Banquet until well after the fact.
Right.
And I don't know, I kind of fell out with them a little bit. Now, I got back with them with Let It Bleed.
Right.
And Give Me Shelter.
Yeah.
And all that. And that's right about the time when what you're talking about here was at its peak.
That's kind of like Human Clay with me and Creed. That I didn't...
I just love that you're bringing it to Creed.
Sorry, I'm bringing Creed back up.
What's this guy's deal?
I have no idea.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is why he's my perfect podcasting partner. Is because he'll bring back stuff in order to try and derail me, and it's the beauty of our show, Mike.
Derailed it.
Nobody understands that better than me.
Yeah. So they're trying essentially, I guess, to create kind of a Woodstock of the West Coast is what I heard it was billed at.
Yeah.
Right. And then in the course of that time, well, they can't get anybody to run security for them, so they hire the Hells Angels, paid in free beer, to do this.
Good idea.
Yeah. So talk to us about what happened at the concert that made it such an anomaly and such a big sort of cultural deal.
Well, it was in a real remote, hard to get to, out of the way place.
Right.
The traffic was unbelievable. So I've heard.
Yeah.
You know, it was real hard to get to. It was really, really disorganized. There were people crashing the gates, and before long, they weren't even asking for tickets.
It was just chaos.
Yeah, it was just total chaos. And I don't know, it's funny how word spreads over something like that.
Right.
You know, anytime that type of chaos and that level of anarchy sets in at a thing like that, word seems to get out.
Yeah.
And the more it gets out, the more people show up.
The nefarious folks crawl out of their caves.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And the next thing you knew, they had way too many people out there, way too many people trying to get to it, way too many people already on site. And then, of course, there at the helm of security is Hell's Angels, who were, number one, drunk.
Yep. Off their free beer.
At 11 o'clock in the morning or some such.
Yep.
And number two, eager to just beat over anybody they could. And the vibe was that something really bad's going to happen here. Before this thing is over, something really bad is going to happen. Nobody knew exactly what, but we would all find out with the stabbing of young Meredith Hunter.
So from what little footage there is and what little there's come out of the reporting, Meredith Hunter, during the Rolling Stones set, waves a gun, gets stabbed by a Hell's Angel, and is killed in a bright green suit right in front of the stage.
Is Meredith Hunter a young lady, or was a young
No,
lady?
he's
okay.
Yeah, a young.
I heard suit. I was like, I think
young African American guy, and so that sets off all kinds of stuff about. Was this a racist thing because the Hells Angels are involved? Why wasn't security there? What were the police doing? There's no real formal arraignments and indictments, and all this stuff is just kind of shrouded. Well, so I get this call that says, "Don't push it."
In 1960.
Now, I'm getting a call 39 years later in 2008, right? That's telling me
just keeping the timeline
This
straight.
is the guy who says, I'm the bass player from the Flying Burrito Brothers, so I got no way to verify this. I call my buddy afterwards. He goes, "Don't push it. That's all I'm going to tell you." So I call my buddy afterwards. I'm like,
Did he give you a name?
Is this legit? Right? And he's like, yeah, it is. I've got the name. It's written down in my journal. It's failing me at the moment. And he's like, yep. He actually asked for your number when I started telling him about stuff. I was like, all right, well, he's telling me not to push it. And he goes, yeah, that's kind of what he said. He goes, he told me, if you called me to tell you, lay off. I say, okay. So I go to the guys at Agora and I tell them, hey, this is the thing. And they're like, all right, well, we're having some funding issues with some of our other projects. Like, kind of keep at it, but if it's a big deal, they're like, don't put yourself in any trouble. So I start doing a little
who's
digging.
Agora?
So Agora is the company that was gonna fund the documentary if we were able to pull everything off.
Oh, okay.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
yeah. They're the now defunct film company from Las Colinas I was working with. So I make a few phone calls over the course of the next few months, do a little bit of research, and one of the things that I find out now from this point on, boom, everything from here on is pure speculation and rumor from what I have found out from people who have said, I'll tell you this, but don't say anything about it. Like, I didn't say it, whatever.
Right. Definitely don't start a podcast.
Right, yeah, don't talk about it on a podcast. So long story short, there's one guy who was there that day whose film... But like apparently his camera broke, and his film was never recovered, and that is George Lucas of Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Willow and all of this, right?
Are you a Willow?
He's not. There's no way he's a Willow.
No.
So George Lucas was hired by the Mulsey brothers to run a camera. So this is before any of his big movies and things had ever come out in 1969.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a film student. He's running a camera for them. And supposedly his film, something happens with his camera. They don't get any film. It destroys the whole thing. Now, from what I've been told, you can see his back in a shot. And if anybody is going to have the kill shot of Meredith Hunter, it's this guy with a camera at the front of the stage, which I have been told is George Lucas. And that when George Lucas was shopping his movies around and they couldn't find any funding, that he made a phone call to some people that were connected with Altamont, and they said, as long as your film doesn't show up, you can have the money for your first film. And that they're the ones that funded what now became the Lucas Empire. Now, I don't know how much truth is involved in any of that. It's pure speculation from that point.
That's a great story.
But that's where my What's on Mike's Mind rabbit trail took me, because I am a Star Wars of the highest order. And when I see George Lucas, I'm like, is that the guy? Yep. So we decide through Agora we're going to reach out to Lucasfilm. We reach out to Lucasfilm, and they were given some kind of form letter that said George has no interest in talking about this. His camera broke. There's nothing really to discuss. That's it. And then that was what put the nail in the coffin for the project.
So confirming he was there, but that that there is no footage.
But they stuck to the footage story,
just as he altered the original.
So one of
trilogy,
my most favorite
which does not exist
life
anymore.
Stories of weird rabbit trails that I went down and speculation and all that came out of a What's on Mike's Mind segment. So, I said, the next time we get Mike on, I got to talk to him about that and say, thanks. Your curiosities have sparked some wonderful moments for me and for us in our podcast.
We got to talk to Lynn Ulbricht too out of it.
If there's any way.
That's really cool.
And if there's any way that you can just start to spend some of that stuff back, we'll, when it piques our interest, we'll have to loop you back in on it, because it's created some incredible adventures for the two of us. So thanks for that. It's been a blast. And the second thing I've always wanted to ask you about is what the heck happened the day that Quincy Carter called into the station to talk to you and Grego about that he never used marijuana and got cut from the Jets and the Cowboys for no good reason.
I bet Grego would remember more about that than me. But what I do remember about it is we were sitting there doing the show, just doing our thing the way we normally do.
Right.
And I can't remember who our producer was at the time. It might have been Kat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Kat.
I think so.
Kat says, he breaks in and says, guys, Quincy Carter's on the phone. So, okay, let's put Quincy Carter on.
As you do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, as you would.
The former Dallas Cowboys quarterback just uses the red phone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, come on.
Sure. And we put him on there and pretty much let him hang himself.
Yeah.
Because he was really, really altered, really, really out there, making no sense whatsoever. And that really did. I don't know if that punched his ticket out of here.
Right.
But it certainly furthered the cause.
So I had all of that audio on a laptop because even in the early days back then, the ticket was still putting out podcasts. And so you could get the Hardline podcast when podcasts were brand new. You could get it. And so I would download all of the segments. Right? They were just set to automatically download to my computer. So I had that audio. It has since been scrubbed from them. It's been scrubbed from the Unticket. They've got the day after where Gordo does the fake Quincy Carter, but they don't have anything with him. Even the version of it that I downloaded on my old laptop says it's inaccessible now.
You're turning into Sherlock Holmes.
So, yeah. Well, no, I'm not going to try it. So I'm just curious. Was there ever, to your knowledge?
No, wait a minute. Yeah. You had this downloaded.
I had it downloaded, right?
George Lucas came to his house and
took it away. So with the old version of iTunes, the download feature would not download it to your hard drive. It would download it basically to an early version of the cloud where it would store it. And so if somebody removed something, they could delete it from there. And so that got deleted from there.
Wow.
So to your knowledge, was there ever any like order to, hey, we got to pull this? Like y'all didn't get a call, as far as you know, from Rich or from somebody else that said, hey, look, this puts everybody in this in a bad light. We need to get rid of this. Because the only thing that I can find that exists now is the next day, the fake Quincy that Gordon did.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the original audio is nearly impossible to find. I say nearly impossible because I'm sure somebody can dig it up.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to find it since about 3 years after it all happened.
Now, I'm assuming the Rich here is Dalrymple?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. At that time, if he was going to call the radio station about something like this, he would not call us.
Okay.
This would go over our heads to whoever program director was at the time.
Yeah.
And it might have gone to whoever was running the station at the time.
So would that have been Dan? Like Dan Bennett at that point?
What year was this?
This would have been probably 05, 06, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it would have been him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the call would have just been made to him, and then, but it never, as far as you know, or as far as you remember, this never got trickled down to you guys of like, hey, don't do this. We're not talking about this.
No.
Huh.
No, never did.
Interesting.
At least not to me.
Because that was one of my favorite pieces of hardline lore was that phone call. Because it was, I have to say, that is probably, everybody jokes about the Chief Kunkel stuff was really Grego at his finest. That interaction with Quincy, I think, was probably one of the best, like, true Hammer moments because he would not let him off the hook. And every bit of, like, double speak and stuff he circled back to. And when Grego, and this was, again, part of the genius of the early days of the ticket, when Grego would start to get really fired up, you'd come in, you'd calm tensions down, get Quincy to reset, and then here we are again in the middle of this really bizarre diatribe that lasted, 40 minutes almost? I mean, it was really long.
Yeah, it was long. It was long, and it was really bizarre. That much I do remember about it.
Yeah.
And, man, he was high.
Oh yeah. For somebody trying to convince folks you're not on marijuana, maybe don't smoke a whole ounce of it before you call into somebody's show.
That ain't no way to do it, that's for sure.
I think most of the people trying to convince people they're not high are.
Yeah. You come in with a bottle of Visine.
Yeah, I'm not high.
I'm not high. Yeah.
I'm not drunk, Uncle.
So what if I'm not too fast, too furious?
God, I wonder who would have that.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's something that since it got scrubbed off that laptop, that, man, I've been really curious about it ever since.
It would be before Groobs, but Groobs seems like the kind of beaver
well,
guy that
would have been
store things away for winter.
That probably would have been like right in his wheelhouse in 06. He would have probably just been coming on to you guys, because this would have been at the beginning, I guess, sort of all the stuff that you guys covered in your episode with Grego. This is sort of the beginning of really the main parts of the friction in that relationship before his exit, either a year or two after.
I'll tell you what I'll do.
Yeah.
Let me ask Expo about this.
Okay. The exponential intern.
The exponential intern remembers everything.
Yep.
He's got a steel trap like few you've seen. And if I doubt that he has this.
Right.
But whatever you might like to know about it, he can probably tell you.
What was that like seeing him? Were you expecting Expo to show up at, what is it? It's not the Diamond Doctor. It's not the Diamond Factory.
The Diamond Factory.
Yeah, the Diamond Factory. Were you expecting Expo to show up at the Diamond Factory?
I was not. It was great to see him.
Yeah. Was that...
I love Expo.
Sort of like old home week, getting all the old band back together?
Yeah, a little bit.
That's
there was
pretty cool.
a good bit of that out there. But it was especially cool to see him.
Yeah. You have been, I think, one of the things about the ticket that always was interesting was the way that everybody talked about one another. But it's interesting for me, at least, to hear the respect with which you talk about Expo when he is one of the guys that y'all poked fun of pretty hard at the station. But you mentioned just a consummate professional, and it was so great hearing him back on the air with you guys because you could tell the admiration was there mutually. It was fun
I
for the
didn't poke
listener.
fun of him.
Yes. Oh, sure.
I didn't do that because I had a lot of respect for the guy. He was a pro.
Yeah, even as an intern.
Yes, even as an intern. I mean, he was a pro. He went in there and did his thing every day and was just as professional as he could be about it. He was all business. There was no BS, no nothing, you know? And that's not to say he was unpleasant.
Right.
He wasn't. I mean, he was a little bit of a prickly guy anyway, but you just had, I mean, once you worked around that and just came to terms with, okay, this is just the way the guy is, he was great.
Well, I think anybody that's that good at math is typically a little prickly.
Yeah, I do too.
That just tends to be the case.
There's a certain no-nonsense quality that they just can't shake.
Yeah.
He was just prickly because he didn't have a billboard.
Maybe that too.
There was no billboard that said, I'm sure everybody knows I'm hanging around Dallas a little bit.
That's right. Well, Mike, you are always welcome. I don't think I've asked you this yet, but this is a question that comes up occasionally.
Oh, here it comes.
Mike, would you be my friend?
Of course, Danny.
Excellent.
Aw.
That's
all he wanted.
I'll be your neighbor.
Wow.
Won't you be my neighbor?
But I would love to, and we'll have to find you a nice pair of wingtips so that you can change into those mid-segments.
Cardigan.
Yes.
Cardigan. Well, hey, Mike, why don't you tell our audience where it is that they can find you these days and how they can listen to 97.1 The Freak?
Well, all you got to do is just punch it up. 97.1 The Freak. We got podcasts on the iHeart podcast scene. I believe they're on Spotify as well, if I'm not mistaken. Are there any others that I'm not aware of?
I listen to it on Apple Podcasts. That's where I...
Okay.
iHeartRadio over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. There are 3 places where we podcast out at. What we would really like for you to do is listen to it live on 97.1, but I realize that's kind of uncool these days. However, that's the way ratings are taken, so, help a brother out here with this.
Absolutely.
You got it.
That'd be very neat. If you want me, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at The Old Gray Wolf. You can email me at theoldgraywolf@gmail.com.
And we can tell you he does respond because that's how he ended up here. That and a little bit of me overselling my ability to put things together in order to create a sound system for a gig. So all that and next on the Reverend and the Reprobate. You guys, well, I'll let you do it. We used to say have good and get give, but now that you're not there anymore, it just doesn't seem genuous. Tell us to stay hard. What's the thing?
You guys stay hard. Keep jamming. And we'll see you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.